All right, welcome back everyone. We have got some absolutely monumental ground to cover in today's explainer. At the very tail end of its term, the United States Supreme Court handed down two massive, really game-changing decisions that are going to directly impact election integrity and immigration policy across the entire country. Whether you're deeply fascinated by constitutional law, or honestly, you just want to know how the rules are shifting before the next election cycle kicks into gear, these rulings are pivotal. So let's jump right into it.
But real quick, before we get into the weeds, a huge shout out to the folks making today's explainer possible, Shasta Unfiltered. Their entire mission is serving the North State with honest news and entertainment. If you are looking for really focused, hyper-local reporting on how these major national events ripple through California, and specifically right here in Shasta County, they are absolutely your go-to resource.
Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. We'll hit the major Supreme Court decisions, look at mail-in ballot deadlines, dive into the Birthright citizenship ruling, see what the local impact is in California, and finally, summarize the next steps.
Section 1. Major Supreme Court decisions setting the stage.
Section 2. Mail-in ballot deadlines in Watson v. Republican National Committee.
So we're looking at two back-to-back incredibly hot-button issues the court tackled. This first case is all about Mississippi. Basically, their law allows absentee ballots postmarked by Election Day to still be counted, as long as they arrive within a 5-day grace period. The big question here is, do these grace periods violate federal Election Day statutes? It was a razor-thin 5-4 decision to uphold the law. But the reasoning on both sides of this split is just fascinating, and it's incredibly important for how elections are going to be run nationwide.
You can really see a stark contrast in legal philosophy playing out here. On one side, you have the majority, authored by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and she focused hyper-specifically on the exact wording of the law, the statutory text. She argued that while federal law requires ballots to be cast or mailed by Election Day, it simply does not impose a nationwide receipt deadline on the states. But then, on the flip side, Justice Samuel Alito, writing for the dissent, took a much more historical approach. He argued that the historical meaning of having an election on a specific day inherently meant completing the actual ballot collection on that very same day.
Let's zoom in on the majority's exact reasoning for a second. Justice Barrett wrote, "The Election Day statutes require the electorate's choice to be made on Election Day, but they do not set a deadline for ballot receipt. Actually, by reversing the lower Fifth Circuit Court with this specific logic, it effectively preserves these exact kinds of grace periods in about 14 or 15 states plus Washington, D.C. Basically, the choice has to be made on time, but the mail still gets time to arrive."
Then we have Justice Alito's dissent, which was joined by Justices Thomas and Gorsuch, with Justice Kavanaugh joining for most of it. Alito wrote, having an election on a particular day meant completing ballot collection on that day. The dissent really hammers home the perspective that allowing ballots to roll in days later risks late surges, opens the door to potential manipulation, and ultimately just erodes public trust in our election safeguards. They're basically arguing that states historically imposed these receipt deadlines precisely to prevent fraud and stay in compliance with federal law.
Section 3. The Birthright citizenship ruling in Trump v. Barbara.
This next case takes on another absolute heavyweight issue, this time centering around Executive Order 14160. Handed down with a 6-3 split, the Supreme Court formally struck down President Trump's order. Now, that order had originally sought to deny citizenship to certain children born in the U.S. after February 20, 2025, specifically targeting those whose parents were unlawfully present in the country.
Breaking down this particular legal split reveals a really deep debate over original constitutional meaning. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, reaffirmed a precedent from way back in 1898, the Wong-Kim Ark case. He ruled that children born on U.S. soil are citizens at birth under the 14th Amendment's Citizenship Clause because they are, quote, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. But Justice Clarence Thomas delivered a very strong originalist dissent. He interpreted the Constitution based strictly on what it meant when it was originally written. He argued that being subject to the jurisdiction requires primary allegiance and a permanent home, or domicile. He reasoned that the 14th Amendment's framers were focused on freed slaves, and that children of undocumented parents typically retain ties to their parents' home country, which puts them outside of that full jurisdiction.
So what does this all mean on the ground? Well, first, it guarantees automatic U.S. citizenship from birth for these kids, giving them full rights like passports and Social Security. But crucially, and we really need to highlight this because it's a very common misconception, it does absolutely not grant legal status or amnesty to their undocumented parents. The immigration consequences for the parents remain entirely unchanged by this decision.
Section 4, Local Impact in California and What It Means for the North State.
Okay, so how do these massive, somewhat abstract federal rulings actually connect back home? Looking at the practical fallout for California, we're seeing two very distinct impacts. On the election side, the Supreme Court's ruling explicitly talked about ballots needing a postmark on or before Election Day. But here's the catch. California's expansive election laws actually allow for non-postmarked ballots to be counted. Because of the court's specific wording regarding postmarks, this could definitely invite some future legal challenges against California's current system. On the immigration side, the Birthright ruling means the status quo continues in California, keeping the ongoing debates over border security, census data impacts, and public resources very much alive.
Narrowing it down even further to Shasta County, you can really see how the arguments made by the dissenting Supreme Court justices echo the specific, everyday concerns of a lot of local voters here. The community is hyper-focused on prioritizing secure and timely election processes, which lines up perfectly with the integrity concerns we saw in that mail-in ballot dissent. Plus, the local debates over border security and exactly how population demographics impact census data and enforcement priorities, those are going to stay front and center in Shasta County politics following this Birthright Citizenship ruling.
Section 5, Summary and Next Steps Looking Ahead.
Both of these cases really underscore a constant, ongoing tug-of-war between original constitutional meaning and the day-to-day practicalities of modern governance, which leaves us with this final, absolutely crucial question. How will these major rulings shape the 2026 midterms? Is the preservation of mail-in grace periods going to change voter turnout strategies? Will the Birthright Citizenship ruling spur totally new legislative efforts in Congress? We really want to hear what you think about this. Please make sure to like this explainer, share it with anyone who wants to understand the actual facts behind these rulings, and definitely hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. And hey, for more honest, unfiltered news on exactly how these issues are playing out in your own backyard, head over to ShastaUnfiltered.com right now. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.